Hey, Bub.
Heyo.
Okay, so for everyone uninitiated, this is my brother Donnie Blair. I will not be calling him Donnie Blair or Donovan Blair, which is his name. I will call him Bub because he's my
You're not
brother, like
allowed.
I said.
You're
Yeah,
not
and
allowed
he
to
does
call me by my name.
exactly. He does not like. He doesn't like it when I call him by his name. Um,
It's not my name to you.
right. I know. I know. Uh, and it's a brother thing. It's also could be a Texas hick thing. I don't know. Could be, but
Probably
whatever
is.
the probably is. Whatever the case is, I call him Bub. So for the duration of this interview, I will be calling him Bub, as to not confuse. Um, this is he is also my first bassist on the podcast, so that's monument ish, uh,
Yeah. Momentous.
momentous,
No.
momentous.
Momentous.
No, it's
Momentous. It's not
momentous.
momentous. It's momentous.
Well,
Yeah.
either
Go
fucking
with
way,
monumental.
monumental. Um, it's monumental that my first bassist also happens to be my brother. My brother, we started our careers together as we started kind of everything together. I believe you were the second person in the world I met. Um, after
Third.
after
You
uh,
met mom and dad first.
I don't know. Yeah, I might have met you before Dad.
No. Actually,
Well,
I think you met the nurses and the doctors
yeah,
that were trying to
it's
save
probably
you
true.
and mom. I think I was
Well,
way down.
either way, this is my brother,
Yep.
and we started our career together. We had a band called Hagfish in the '90s, and then my brother started putting out. After that, my brother started putting out instrumental records, which you've been doing for 23 years, maybe a little longer
Uh,
now. Um,
25.
yeah,
25.
under first of all the band the Mag Seven, and
Yep.
now the band the Tulsa Doom, which is your solo stuff, which we'll get into that as well.
Okay.
Um, you also, you and I had another band called Only Crime together with Bill Stevenson from Black Flag Descendants All, who was also sort of a mentor to us our whole careers. Took us under his wing, thankfully, because we just idolized him, and that was our Hagfish was basically just a tribute to him. Um, and then about 16 years ago, about a year into my tenure in the Rise Against band, you joined the Toadies. And the Toadies, if people don't know, which would be crazy if you're a rock guitar fan, if you don't know the Toadies because they're fucking ubiquitous. Our band started in the '90s in Texas. Oh, we started in the same scene, playing shows, together when we were younger and to no one. And they made a record that sold 4 million, 5 million, 6 million.
No, I think I say this only 2 million.
Well, I think I I
I
I I think it was more, but
don't,
it's
I don't,
everywhere. It's ubiquitous
yeah.
and it's all over the place. And you have been with that band now
Since
for
2008,
since
15 years
2008.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so a really long time. And you guys just recorded with Steve Albini, which is, I mean, geez, what a
Yeah.
career high. And we'll get into that as well. And I couldn't be prouder of you for that. So
Thank you.
we'll, yeah, we'll talk about that. So another thing about this entire interview is we have to suspend the idea and thought that I don't know these answers, which I do.
You could do this whole thing by yourself. I
Yeah, I
don't even
could.
need to be here.
I could just narrate it. Well, I mean, we did just get off the phone for an hour, which we talk every day for an hour at
About
least.
Yamaha basses.
Yeah, and about just random fucking stupid gear shit.
By
Well,
the
there's
by the
there,
way, a minute ago you said I think it'd be fucking rad if you guys change your name to the Rise Against Band.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
pretty. I
The
see the
the
Rise
rise
Against Band,
the rise
or
againsters.
the Rise Against.
Yeah. Um, yeah,
Run it
that,
over with it. Call the guys, see what they say. Yeah,
yeah. Fly it up the flagpole.
yeah.
Um,
Run it up the flagpole, see what they say.
see if it salutes. Okay, so um, you Well, this is such a vague question, and I definitely know the answer. But how did you get started? How did you get started playing bass?
You were there
I know.
with you. You and Dad talked me into it because I wanted to be a drummer, and I think part of it was I think Dad, he didn't want to pay for a fucking set of drums. That's what I think. I think he
Yeah,
saw, and you were like, you guys, I remember both of y'all were like, why don't you play bass? Just play bass.
yeah.
And I didn't want to be Bill Wyman. I thought that was boring as shit. Um, and then I remember Dad played
Nothing
long
against
distance.
Bill Wyman. Nothing against Bill Wyman. Go ahead.
Anyway, anyway, so I remember Dad played. I remember Dad said something like, "Oh no, 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 son," because I mean, the Stones were not big in our house. It was not a
Yeah,
big, it was not a Stones heavy household. But I remember Dad played Long Distance Runaround and by Yes off of Fragile, and think that I heard that and was like, "Oh shit, I can sound like that," you
yeah,
know. And that's kind of what started, I think. And I think Dad knew I was left-handed, so he thought I was going to play the opposite of you. And he was kind of bummed when he found out I wasn't.
yeah,
He thought it would look cool. Do you remember that?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and for the also a little to fill in the listener, our dad was a classic rock radio DJ, so he had this
Yeah.
really great music taste. He had this great music collection, which fortunately, our parents, our dad was a radio DJ, our mother was a florist in a grocery store, so money was not abundant. But my
They
dad
were
had
happy, but we didn't
they
have
were
a lot of
yeah.
money. They did what
We
they wanted
always
to do. Yeah.
yeah, we always lived in apartment complexes, and my brother and I shared a room, which was beneficial to what we ended up
Yeah.
doing. But
Yeah.
but my dad always did have a great vinyl collection because it was one of the perks of being a DJ. He would bring them home. They were punch outs. They were called punch outs. They couldn't sell them. They would put like a hole punch through the corner of them, and my dad would bring those records home. And my dad was into the heavier stuff, even like back then,
Uh,
the sort of proto metal, uh,
Yet
blue.
he also turned us on to Oingo Boingo.
Well,
He
right,
thought
right,
Danny
right.
Elfman was cool as shit.
He also got into post punk and new wave and all of that sort of stuff, and even punk. I mean, he brought home that no wave soundtrack, no
Oh
wave
yeah.
compilation, which was the Dickies and the Police and Clark Kent and Squeeze.
I remember he
Um,
loved Fishbone.
yeah, he loved Fishbone. But and back then he loved prog rock and heavier acid rock and stuff. So it was for us, it was great because we also had a penchant for the heavier stuff. Um, so you kind of brushed on it a little bit there, but your early guys, who were your early guys?
Chris, uh, well,
Squire.
Getty. Oh yeah.
You know,
Forgot.
I mean,
I
you
forgot
think
they don't know.
you you met him and it goddamn now
I
here's
did. Do
a
you remember
this is a
that? No.
true story, true
All
story.
right.
My brother
Yeah. All right. Here, the only
my brother was in Hawaii. Hang on, motherfucker. My brother was in Hawaii and
my goddamn.
his idol has always been Chris Squire from Yes. And he went to the store. Him and his wife were on a vacation in Hawaii, and he went to like the corner store just to get some stuff for the room. And he's standing right behind fucking Chris Squire.
Yeah, we had just gotten off of the flight. We were in Maui, and there was this. It's a grocery store in Lahaina, actually Kaanapali, that may not be there anymore, unfortunately. And we were walking around, and I saw him, and I start stuttering, and my wife was like, "What?" And I said, "That's Chris Squire." I mean, we'd been on a flight for 8 hours. She was over it. She was like, "Okay." I'm gonna go get the fucking food. You do whatever the fuck you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And I went up to him and I was just like, holy shit, can I get your, I didn't say holy shit, but I just said, can I get your, yeah, I go up, holy shit, you're Chris Squire. He walks off. But he was so nice and so thankful. And it was like one of the only times in my life I've been nervous. Just shook
Well,
his hand.
and he passed away not too long after that, huh?
Well, I was talking to you. Immediately, I called you. I think I called you in the middle of the night, but I think later on the next day we were talking, and he walked in front of our patio, and you were talking, and you kept talking. I was like, "Shh, Zach, Zach, Zach," and you're kind of like, "Shh, shh." Chris Squire's walking right in front of me. You're like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" right now? Like, yeah, right now. He's fucking walking in front of me. And we didn't have FaceTime, or I could have FaceTime, which would have been weird, but it would have been cool. You could have
Yeah.
seen him.
And
But,
that,
yeah.
and that, my listeners, is a day in the life of the Dork Brothers. Dude, Chris Squire is walking right in front of my house right now.
And
But
you were equally as excited. You were
no, I know,
equally,
no, I'm not. I am not
I
shunning.
know.
I'm saying,
I know.
fuck. I'm taking full responsibility for being a
Well,
complete goddamn
but
dork.
it was him and Getty Lee
Yeah, yeah.
of Rush.
Getty Jones, um, Getty Jackson of
Getty Roberts
of the Doobie Brothers.
of
Um,
Wishbone Ash.
yeah,
It was,
no,
and Cliff, fucking Cliff Burton too,
yeah. And then Chris Squire passed away not too long ago after that. And I'm saying, I think maybe you killed him. I'm just kidding. Um,
I did. That
yeah,
sucks.
yeah. Only one of us can live. Okay, so those were early guys. And but did you think that my you also have an obsession with the Rickenbacker bass that has
Mhm.
gone throughout your sort of tenure as a bass
Unhealthy.
player?
It's an
Yeah,
unhealthy.
which has been most of your life. Now, if you look up pictures of my brother, he didn't always play a Rickenbacker bass, but he is definitely playing them now. You played them in the '90s a bit. You played them. You've
Yeah.
kind of flirted with them in and out, and they're not so friendly. You got to kind of
No.
find the thing that works for you, and for you, it was changing out the bridges and doing things like that. So it took you a while to
Yeah.
sort of find the sweet spot, but you always obsessed about. It. Do you think that it was Chris Squire and John Entwistle and Geddy Lee that sort of
Oh yeah. Well,
fueled that?
and Cliff. Cliff used one on Kill 'Em All.
Right.
But I think hearing long distance run around first and just that sound. Then I got signals and I looked on the back of it.
By Rush.
Thank you. Fuck, forgot. Yeah.
Yeah,
I forgot people.
it's
It's
not
not
just
just
us
me and you.
talking. Yeah.
But anyway, all right. So when I got signals, that was when they used to say what the band used. Because I
Yeah.
think Yes had that on their motto, and it said he used a Rickenbacker, and then said that Getty used a Rickenbacker on signals. So it was just kind of piecing together in my head like these great tones, were like, of course I loved Steve Harris, but I wasn't freaking out over his precision tone, you know.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
having that was kind of the the standard, Kira also from Black
Cure.
Flag.
Yeah.
I said
Yeah.
it. I beat you to it.
Cure Rustler.
Just, I mean, every time, and still to this day, if I see pictures of them, even though I have fucking three, and I'm gonna buy more, I'd
Yeah.
still, and it also, it works back, I think, with my band's tone. Lisa Umbarger, the first bass player in the Toadies, I mean, shit, Lisa can go along with this, that I bugged the fuck out of her about her Rickenbackers all the time.
Oh, I
She'd
remember you
never,
doing it.
I'd always ask her to sell me one. She never did,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think
Ye-
it works with the band's tone. I
Yeah.
like I like that tone. I like the
Well, maybe
sound of
and maybe
Rickenbacker.
and maybe that was it before, because I remember you used one back in the Hagfish days, and
Yeah,
it didn't really work for us. And then you flirted with it in different bands, but I think you just
yeah.
found the right sort of combination. And we'll
You
get
know
to that in
what?
a minute. We'll
Yeah.
get we'll get to that in a minute. But as far as the combination, your tone, but people underestimate it wasn't as easy as just Googling what a guy was using. You didn't know back then, and it was
No.
in until Rush came out with the Exit Stage Left video, the VHS that we would obsessively rent at the local video store in Sherman, because there wasn't even a goddamn Blockbuster for a while.
Mm.
And
That
we
had
would
the tanning booth in it.
it had a tanning booth in it, and you would obsess. We would rent that, and you would just watch it. And Geddy Lee, of course, is playing the Black Rickenbacker in that, and that's in the '90s, and yeah. So you really just knew from a tone, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What were you going to say? I interrupted you a minute ago.
No, I was just gonna say about going back to it took a bit for them. I think just any person that plays Ricks off and on and knows that sometimes like their pots or the pickups, they they go through different changes. Sometimes they don't sound as good, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
think now they kind of got it right all around the mark. And other Rickenbacker lovers are going to probably, you know, disagree with me, but that's, I don't really give a shit, you know, because I know what works
If that's the
for my
pull
band.
quote, if that's the pull quote from this interview, I don't really give a shit.
I think it's the pull quote from my life. I don't really give a shit, you know, but I mean,
I don't really give a shit.
do I? You know, but I mean, a lot of people love to buy them and put them up on a wall, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I don't buy Ricks to so they can look pretty. I buy them because they sound amazing. And I think now they kind of have hit it on the mark the past few years because the technology that they have um, um, is fantastic. And I think their pickups are great. Their pots are great. You know, you've heard the
Yeah, but
results.
you do sort of think that aesthetically they're completely awesome as well. I mean, you
Oh,
do.
overall, I mean,
Yeah,
listen to Roger Waters on, and funnily enough, all of Machine Head by Deep Purple, even though it has a fucking precision on the back of it,
yeah.
he played a Rick on that entire
See,
thing.
now here's where you're. I mean, like this podcast is fucking dorky, but if
We're
you
gonna
start
go with
talking
this.
about what records specifically, I'm gonna have to draw a line somewhere. Um,
I got a list. I know what they
I
are
know you
too.
do, motherfucker. But anyway, okay. So we brushed a little bit about it. So with your Rickenbacker and with this new record, and we'll talk about Albania in a second as well. You sort of, in my opinion, I of course you're my brother, so I'm biased and I'm partial. You're my favorite bass player, but you also are a very discernible player, which I feel like is the best compliment you could give to a musician. I know
Thank you.
personally, and maybe if other uninitiated folks aren't, I'm partial, but I know when it's you playing. And that, no matter, you and I both have changed our mind about gear our entire careers. We're not guys who have like found one thing. I mean, I've used Gibson guitars for the bulk of my career, but I've also used other stuff.
Mm.
Um,
And it always sounds
and,
like you, though. That's the thing.
well, thank you. But your new tone on this new record, it is a Rickenbacker. It is different, and it does sound very much like you, in my opinion. And do you want to talk about a little bit of what you're using on the new record you just recorded?
Yeah. We went in with Steve Albini, and I took just my Maple Glow 4001, and I took my the Dark Glass Alpha Omega, that 900 head, and just my pedals, which has like a micro tubes, like a Dark Glass micro tubes pedal on it, and that was pretty much it. You know, here and there, I used the Ass Master that you bought me a couple years ago.
For
Great.
there's a pedal called the Bassmaster, and it's a boutique bass fuzz, I guess is the best way
Yeah.
to explain it. Germanium diode, handmade, and it is by the Maleko Heavy Industry as the company that makes the Bassmaster.
Isn't that Paul Barker from Ministry?
Oh, I don't know.
I
Uh,
thought he was behind it. But regardless, it's irregardless. Uh, it was, I used that just on one song. The rest of it was my stuff through one of Steve's
Oh,
Emperor
so
caps.
sorry, you are completely right. Maleko is co-owned by entrepreneur Josh Hawley and music industry veteran Paul Barker. Yeah, they make
Josh,
they make outboard gear, all kinds synth gear. They do all kinds of Maleko. It's a
cool,
good company.
cool
But
company.
so you have had that pedal on your board for quite a while,
I use it on the record a few times, not a lot, but a few
and
times.
you used an Emperor cab, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
was great. Steve had it. He has a bunch of fantastic trainer heads as well. But and we tried them and tried out a couple of them and they sounded cool, just not what I wanted to hear for the record, you know. I didn't want to go for a different, more mid-rangey tone, you know. I
yeah.
wanted to just sit underneath. You don't try to if you got Vaden singing in your band, you don't really want to step out in front of that. You kind of need to let, I don't know, people want to hear that
Right.
over over whatever fucking bass line I'm playing,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and and I think you nailed it. And I think you it's weird because to me it's like it sounds like you, the sound that I am very accustomed to knowing, of you, the way you
Thank you.
phrase, the way you play. But it also sounds perfectly Toadies, it perfectly Steve Albini. It's
Yes.
it's exciting, and it's a great record, and
Thank you.
I can't wait for everybody to hear it. So talk me through a little bit about you, like what it was like working with Albini. Like how was that for you and me, as aforementioned, we are music nerds, and
Yeah.
that when I knew that was happening, I was so proud of you, and I was so creatively jealous, and but living vicariously through you. So what was that like?
Amazing. And Steve is just very, I think Steve gets a bad rap from some of the music industry, but I think it's just because he's super honest. If you
Yeah,
ask him his opinion, he'll fucking tell you. He doesn't prefer or offer an opinion all the time. Definitely not within a production standpoint. That's just not his thing. He keeps it more to engineering. Um, but I think he's very honest to, and I think, how many musicians do we know? Not all musicians are incredibly thick-skinned, but thankfully my band is. And
yeah.
if Steve was just very, he was one of us basically. He was very sarcastic, but just he had great idea. Whenever he did have an idea, we always took it. It was fantastic just to watch him work and editing. If we had to do an edit of something really quick just to cut something off, he got out the fucking razor blade and went right at it with tape,
Well,
which is
and
amazing.
that's another thing in today's day and age. So for those that don't know, everything is done digitally now. There's a recording software called Pro Tools. There's Logic. There's all kinds of things, and it's keystrokes. And the old way is actual tape, reel to reel tape. And if you needed to make an edit, you went at that thing with a razor blade and you taped
Yeah,
it back together. And Steve Albini still does things that way. It's like the old school butter churn almost, and so
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
real thing to behold and witness. You and I are old enough that we made records on tape before, and it's a
yeah.
process, and it's you also have to
It
be on your shit as a band and as a musician too.
yeah, it kept us on our shit because I mean I listen back to it now and like and you listen to things today and you wonder, okay, that sounds great, but did I really play it or is it edited where I sound good? Is that why it
Yeah,
sounds good? This, when I listen to it, like, oh fuck, I played this. I mean, all of the bass and drums were done together within a few
yeah,
takes. I thought Rez and I were done in 5 days, but
yeah,
that's kind of normal for me and Rez. And then
yeah,
Vaden and Clark went back and did guitars and vocals, and it would be a thing of, Vaden going in and fucking knocking it out like that guy does, and
yeah.
Clark going in and knocking it out, and Clark's playing on this record specifically spectacular, I think, you know.
Yeah, I'm excited for everybody to hear it. But well, I mean, and
Me
that's
too.
just it's quite an achievement and accomplishment. And yeah,
Well,
yeah, I'm really proud of you. Well,
I think
let's.
Steve brought it out a big. I think just being around, having his sense of just musicianship and just his history, and I
Well,
think he really brought it out the best in us.
and to just join the pantheon of his records, from Jesus Lizard to PJ Harvey to Page and Plant to
Oh yeah,
Digits to everything he did for Touch and Go and everything, it's just his own
so
bands, Big Black, Shellac,
yeah,
it's quite the pedigree.
yeah.
We'll back up just a little bit, well, a lot actually. Talk about maybe getting the Toadies gig because you and me, you were not a pick player. So for
Oh
people, I guess the quote unquote proper way of playing bass traditionally is with your fingers, and your guys, Geddy Lee, you know, John Paul Jones, Steve Harris, not Chris Squire. were finger guys, and so you did it that way, and you learned how to do it very very well. Um, as a matter of fact, I made a riff video for this particular interview where I tried to play one of your lines with my fingers and I couldn't fucking do it. It was laughable. Um, but because I know you played the riff with your fingers because I was there. But
You
so
you watched me do it.
the Toadies gig came up. You and I always loved the Toadies. Every band in Dallas loved the Toadies and looked up to them in the '90s.
Yeah.
And the gig came up. You were kind of, I wouldn't say gone legit, but you'd settled into life. You know, you had left Only Crime, and you were kind of going to do your solo records and your instrumental records and things. And then this gig came up, and you were like, but it's a pit gig. And so you flew up. I was making a record in Colorado, and we worked on it, and you got the gig amongst other careered pick bass pick players. And I was really, I knew you would get it, but I was really proud of you as well. So talk a little bit about getting that.
Well, I remember whenever I sent the email, it turned out to be our manager, who's gonna be here in a little bit. He's
Yeah.
coming to hang out with me. Um, and I think I got the email back from them. They were like, "All right, well, this is a pick gig, and it's all downstrokes. Is that cool?" And I said, "Oh yeah, it's. I totally got it. This is totally cool." And it was not cool. I didn't have it. I think I called you immediately and was like, dude, I got an audition with the Toadies. You're like, great, you'll nail it. And it was like, it's a pick gig. You're like, oh shit. Well,
Yeah.
here's what you do. And you guys were making Appeal, remember?
Oh,
So
I appealed
me
originally.
and yeah, and by the Rise Against band.
Yeah.
And me and Shelly, my wife, we flew up and you and I worked on it. You would work in the day, she and I would hang out. And then that night, I think, you'd go to your apartment. We were staying with you, and you and I would just work on stuff. And when I showed up for the audition, I did 3 songs because they'd been in the middle of making No Deliverance. So Vaden's voice was just cashed. He'd been singing all day. They were doing like 2 or 3 days of rehearsals. And I'm sorry, 2 or 3 days of, you know, um, interviews and stuff with people. And auditions and shit. So I just did 3 songs and I called Shell before I went in. And I think 30 minutes later, I called her back when I was out. And her first words were like, shit, that's not good. That was pretty quick. When, yeah, no, fuck. But I think they said that they kind of pretty much knew right from the beginning that it
Huh.
had sounded that they could tell that I did my homework. And they didn't know that I wasn't a pick guy at all. I
Wow.
didn't tell them
Well,
until much fucking later, and I never played with my fingers up until Play Art Music, that song Rattler's Revival. Baden sent us the demo and he was telling me one night, he goes, dude, I hear fingers on that. What do you think? And I was like, fuck, yes. I said, I don't want to do that with a pick. All
yeah.
right, cool. And now it's one of those where I make that decision, you know.
Yeah.
I only play one song on the new record with my fingers. That's
Well,
it.
it's pretty insane because I remember you starting off. It was almost like you didn't know how to hold a pick. Like people don't
Did
understand. You had never tried to play with a pick. You your hand was like it was like somebody learning how to play from a beginner. But you had been you had had a career for 25 years by that point or whatever it was,
yeah.
maybe not that long, but 20 years. And to start from there and to get a gig amongst other, I was just, it's a true testament to your
Well,
determination.
you helped me
And
so much. So
well,
let's
sure,
You
but
told me how
but
to hold it. You told me different things to look for, and especially with downstroking. I wouldn't have been able to. I mean, and of course, my fucking luck, and of course, now I know how Vaden is with the particulars and making sure things are right. But of course, I wouldn't get a gig just playing a pick. I had to get the downstroke pick.
right,
Yeah,
right,
that's the one
yeah.
I had to go for. I couldn't just go for
Well,
a normal one where it'd be
well,
fine. I had to go for the downstroke one.
Well, thankfully, I've been under the tutelage of Stephen Edgerton for a long
Yeah.
time, so I had that in my
Oh.
I had that in my wheelhouse. Well, anyway, I just yeah, I always thought that was a great story, and was quite proud of you. And man, I think
Like,
both parties are very lucky with that
I'm
outcome.
stoked.
I've
I'm
always
very
told
happy.
them that. So I've always thanked them for, having my brother in their band. But I've also, the other side of my mouth also said, but you're kind of lucky that he's in your band. So
I
anyway,
I don't think they look at it that way. I
well,
think they would disagree with you 100%.
well, you're being facetious. It is a very facetious
F
comment. I think.
F A
I think.
C E T I O U S
Yeah.
facetious.
I think they very much are happy that they
No,
have a
we
bass player like yourself.
we do love each other as guys. Really do like each other and love each other, and it's a really good vibe we have, especially after making this fucking record. We're on cloud nine because we own it. It's our record. We can do
Yeah.
whatever the hell we want with it, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, and that's few people have that. So now we
Right.
just have to figure out who's going to put it out, where, and how, and
Yeah.
then you
Well,
know. So yeah,
everybody should be on the lookout for that and the lookout for Toadies on tour.